Hey, welcome back to Planet Hex. I'm Andrew Horn. Trends come and go, technologies come and go, but it's strange seeing an older technology come back or gain more interest here in the modern age of streaming. So if you know from my books, VHS Ate My Brain and VHS Ate My Brain 2, I love my physical media. Indeed, you've seen a lot of that on this channel. But I focus mainly on movies and TV on physical media. But there is more going on with physical media than just those. There's music, there's games, there's books, a lot's going on. There is definitely a resurgence in different types of physical media. It's not just me, it's not just old nerds like me on YouTube saying, look, this stuff's coming back. That looked oddly like a certain meme. I'm not saying that on here. But what have other people been saying about this so-called resurgence? So I couldn't say resurgence last time, I did about 5 takes of this. But what are other people online saying about this resurgence in physical media? Let's take a look.
So I'm under no illusions that physical media is ever going to be as big as it was when it was the all-encompassing thing, because that's all there was. But I do think that we are going to see a point where physical media is a viable alternative to streaming. And it's not quite there yet, I don't think, because just of the ease of access for streaming, the proliferation of these apps. But I think there is a tide coming that will turn in favour of physical media, making it, as I say, a viable alternative, because people will own stuff, people will be able to revisit things without it dropping off a streaming service. People won't have to keep paying for endless further services. But let's see what people have been saying here. So we've got an interesting one here that I find interesting over on vhstoppers, is the one on why physical media is making a comeback among younger generations. Now this is interesting to me, because younger generations, well, the generation previous to this one, doesn't have a basis in physical media. The basis is the internet. The internet's always been around for a generation. For this generation, the internet has always been providing streaming services, and even when they weren't as great back when these people were even younger, that's the norm. That's the norm. Streaming music, YouTube. Hi, I love YouTube. YouTube's a different thing. YouTube is a different thing. I'll get to that another time. We'll discuss how that works. But yeah, this interests me because they don't have this basis. They don't have this nostalgia for it. But I think there is something interesting happening with younger generations that are wanting to experience stuff from previous generations in its natural state. Good example of this, I was at a club night a couple of weeks ago called Neon 80s, which is all 80s stuff, and there are a bunch of kids there in like maybe 2021, and they knew all the words to every song, and I was like, yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome. It's like I know all the words to a load of 50s and 60s music. That's what I was brought up on. And if these kids are getting into this music either through streaming or through a love for it from their parents or anything like that, more power to them. It's awesome. It's so fun seeing people having a good time. But I think the tangible feel of physical media, getting a record or even now a cassette, there's a rising cassette use again, or VHS, even DVDs and Blu-rays. There is something about holding it in your hand, having it, being able to revisit it, seeing it on a shelf. That makes me sound very old, I know that, but there is definitely an appeal there. Such as knobs, switches, and physical control. There is something tactile and exciting about that. It's old synthesizers, that's awesome. See, the physical movement of changing these patches and things, that's really exciting, and I can see why that would be appealing to a younger generation that's never had it, where they've just had digital sliders and so on. So that's a good one to take a look at. But I am seeing this more with kids and my son's ages, where they're getting not only an understanding of what physical media meant to us, but the benefits of it. Yeah, things degrade eventually, but bear in mind, I've got VHS tapes, I'll say that better, that are 40 years old plus, and they work perfectly. Aside from the limitations of the medium itself. Over on Pocket Lint, we've got a great piece here. Physical media isn't the Netflix killer I want it to be. So this is juxtaposing what I'm going on about with a comeback, but this is talking about the limitations of that comeback. with Netflix going up in price, all these subscription services changing price and so on, and you get a big stack of subscriptions to the point where you don't know what you've got and you just end up paying a fortune and never using anything, you do need to understand that physical media, as I say, I don't think will ever be the major thing anymore. But I do think it has potential to be a counterpoint to streaming, which, to be honest, is annoying a lot of people at the moment. Favourite shows go, the quality isn't very good, and there is more a focus on content rather than quality in many cases. Right, over on lamag.com, I'm not allowed to view that because I'm in England, so that was a good start, wasn't it? Brockpest.com, in a media landscape defined by digital purchasing, physical ownership has never been more important. This is what I'm talking about. This is a perfect example. The Wii was a great console. Do you know, the Wii was fantastic. This is a really good piece examining the pros and cons of physical media in games. As I say, it's not just movies, not just TV, and keeping hold of those things and being able to grasp these things. The model around game subscriptions is really not really geared towards the audience. It's geared towards the people making money off it. So back in the day, when I was young, you get a game, you put it in, you play the game, and the whole thing's there. You don't get patches, you don't get updates, you didn't get subscriptions, you didn't need a membership, you didn't need all this ridiculous stuff that gets in the way of you actually having fun with stuff. Physical copy of a game, you put it in, you played it. Oh, I sound like an old man. I know that, but I am on a nostalgia channel, so that's kind of what you came here for, really. Over on radiotimes.com, the marvellous Radio Times website from the BBC, we've got the revolution on the shelf, why physical media still matters in the age of streaming TV. There are arguments for and against physical media, you know, and I fully acknowledge that I don't think that it will replace it, but I do think that there is definitely still a place for it. And I visit record stores each week. I visit Retta for music, I visit HMV for DVDs and Blu-rays and all the merch that they have, and there's a load of physical media there. There's FOP as well in town, there's independent places I go to, and I see a lot of physical media being sold. Lots of physical media being bought by people who are excited to get hold of it. That may well just be because I hang out in places full of middle-aged people, but there's a lot of love for it from younger people as well, not just my gang, honestly. And I'm really enjoying seeing people enjoy stuff themselves. That's something in an age of media with comment sections, people aren't allowed to just enjoy stuff. Believe me, with some of the franchises I follow, yeah, fandoms are shit things a lot of the time. But yes, revolution on the shelf, why physical media still matters in the age of streaming TV. That is a good piece over on the Radio Times that discusses these things, these very things that we are here talking about right now. Do go and check that out. That's over on radiotimes.com/gear. Why physical media, like DVDs and VHS tapes, seems to be making a comeback. What I appreciate here is that they've put seems to be. And I did accept all these GDPR things earlier, so I'm sorry those keep popping up. So this is exactly what I'm getting at. A lot of media online and people like me are talking about a physical media comeback. That it's, you know, people are, the sales are going up. They are, in many cases, they are going up. But it's strange to me that it seems to be the younger generation that is helping that comeback. Now, this is a big point here. For many, physical media represents a break from digital noise. This is something I'm going to do a video on actually myself, explaining that I take analog days. I take analog days where I don't have any internet at all. You know, I turn my mobile data off, I play records, play VHS tapes. I don't play cassettes because I don't have a cassette player at the moment, but when I come across one that looks up my street, I will get that. You know, I read physical books, physical comics and magazines. I love magazines, and I love the tactile nature of them and the ease of access for those. You don't need to charge them. You don't need to charge these things, folks. So, bucks, but things like Walkmans and that, you certainly needed batteries. My God, my Walkman ate batteries like mad. It ate them. Delicious batteries. So yeah, over on slashgear.com, that is this piece in fact gets a lot of the points that I'm trying to get across here. It's more reliable than the streaming. You want to hold these things, you want to own these things that you're spending money on. Do go and check that out. What else are people saying? Let's find some to and fro stuff. Over on hercampus.com, we've got a piece, The Resurgence of Physical Media, which again is talking about things coming back, but this is not just focusing on media that you consume. I've done these once tonight. It's also talking about how there is an interest in like photography, physical film, old school development, and that's really interesting. In fact, I'm in Sheffield. Last time I was went to Bertree Records. Next to Bertree Records in the little shopping centre on Devonshire Street, there is a place selling black and white film and colour film and old school cameras, and that's really cool. And cameras and film is a different matter actually, because it's a different thing, because you are creating that media, but because you only have a limited number of them, you only have a limited number of shots on a film, you have to make everyone count. You can't just take millions of them. I'm guilty as that as well, trying to get a decent photo of the kids, for example, for a meal or anything, where they're not pulling a face or berating each other. That is something that is really difficult to do. But you have to make every one of those count. And I think something with photographs, when you get physical photographs in an album, there is something very physical. There is a very real connection to that time, because it's a moment captured rather than millions of moments that could be perfected with filters and editing, and cropping things out. There's something about that is really appealing to people, and I totally get that. Imperfections of streaming sites. Is it just a trend? This is a good point. Is a resurgence of physical media a trend? No. This has been going on for 20 years, since people started talking about the resurgence of vinyl and the resurgence of physical media. Physical media has never gone away. It's never stopped. VHS production stopped in 2016, but even that has come back. There are companies making VHS editions of things. So it never went away. It's just there is an ebb and flow to all things in terms of popular culture, and we are in the midst of that ebb and flow at all times. So while things may seem incredible to start with, it will always ebb back to something that people find a little more familiar. What else have we got? Over on Netflix, this is a weird one. That Netflix, this was a piece from January this year. It's culling a bunch of its originals, and it only highlights the necessity of physical media. Netflix made a thing, Netflix gets rid of a thing, where is it? You can't view it, and that's the work of those artists, the actors, the director, the people that scored it, the people that made the lunches on that shoot for that, all the people that edited it and everything like that. It's gone. God, doesn't matter. It doesn't exist. We've also got over on the Love to Lure, the Online. I wanted to say the Onion then. Love the Onion. In praise of physical media. The subtitle here, why? Because old stuff kind of just does it better. And not to blow the trumpet of a forgotten generation. Hi, Gen X. It did. It was reliable. Nothing buffered. Yeah, you can get scratches on an album, but I've got albums from decades ago that play fantastic. Yep, you have the tracking issues on a VHS tape, and just sort your tracking out. Adjust your tracking, as the saying goes. DVDs, yeah, they could get scratched, but most of them don't. But with streaming, you don't own it. You got to pay a bunch for it. It's really unreliable, signal-wise. Things could buffer, things could stop, things could vanish, things could be replaced by other things. Amazon Prime, you could find a load of things on there that got the wrong certificates on them. It's unreliable, and in many ways still in its infancy, even though we think that we are at the cutting edge of technology. We very rarely are. So over on wvxu.org, from vinyl records to retro games, the appeal of physical media, these pieces are all over the place. These things are all over the place. They're all over YouTube, they're all over websites, blogs, they're in print media. There is stuff going on. Again, here, Marketplace Tech, physical media's comeback, mentioning subscription fatigue, yes, frustration with streaming content changes, yes, and a desire to collect rare finds, all boosting old school physical media. The hunt is part of it. The hunt is part of it. Speaking as an old school VHS collector, that has always been a part of it, and that's something I miss, that we can't do that anymore really here because nowhere has it. But yeah, that is exactly the points I'm making here. That's on marketplace.org. We've got a piece over here, why we still need physical media, on visiontimes.com. Sorry, why we need still physical books. I love physical books. I love ebooks. I put ebooks out. I'm not complaining about ebooks, but I think they have their place beside the physical. I don't think physical books are going to go away anytime soon. They are a different thing to, like visual media like TV or film or anything like that. They are a very tactile media, and they always have been. You want to hold it. You want to hold that psychic paper that's passing someone else's thoughts into your head directly. And I do really agree with this piece. That's on visiontimes.com, all about there, and it is backed up as well. There is evidence on here about the need for physical books. Over on pcmag.com, the UK pcmag.com, swap your playlist for paperbacks. Spotify wants to sell you physical books. So yeah, Spotify doing a load of audiobooks and things like that. We know that a lot of people use them. I use them from time to time, but now they're wanting to sell you paperbacks. Full circle. We are in full circle territory, where even Spotify is recognizing the importance of physical media. Thank you, Spotify. Maxell brings back the cassette player. This is awesome. I've seen a couple of things about cassette subscription services that come with like a booklet about the bands they've got on them. Really low-key niche sort of zine feel to it, but I love that. But Maxell is bringing back this cassette player. Awesome. I'm all for that. Go for it. We've also got why 80s cassette players are trending, and it's about more than nostalgia. This is a rebellion against boring design. Love that. Love that idea. I've not really investigated the new cassette players that are out there in any great detail, but the fact that they are out there and people are interested is really cool. That's over at Creative Block with a Q.com if you want to read that piece. And one last piece I've got tonight that just sums it up really. 8 retro gadgets that refuse to let the analog era die. This is cool. So there are ways for analog and retro media to be incorporated with modern technology. Such as Bluetooth and things like that. It's very, I say modern Bluetooth. It's been around for about 1 billion years. But this is really important to acknowledge that these things can work hand in hand. And people still love to have a gadget, a device. Look at that boombox. That boombox is awesome. What a nice design. The cassette era keeps pulling people back in, not because technology was better, but because the experience was. That's the difference. That is the difference. Back when people were crying out for the end of cinema because of home video was doing it, home video had a really good experience to it, where you could gather around with your friends at home. No, everyone didn't need a ticket. You could gather around with your friends and family, get your favourite snacks and get comfy. You could have the dog there and have a movie night together without going and driving out and paying a fortune. That's the same thing that's happening here. While streaming is convenient, it makes it easy to get a load of new stuff and enjoy these shows and binge watch things and binge watch movies and anything you want. But the experience of doing so is lessened as a result of that availability and that curated availability. That's not something, it's not just stuff that you want to find, it's things that are being advertised directly at you depending on what you've previously watched, which limits your choices. It's the illusion of choice rather than anything else. So anyway, physical media, is it having a comeback? It's having a bit of a resurgence in many ways. A lot of media having a bit of a resurgence because I think many of us are suffering from subscription fatigue. And let's just find different ways to enjoy what we love and not be held down by one specific way of accessing that material. I'm Andrew Horn, this is Planet Hex. Please do like and subscribe if you haven't already. Thank you very much for the new people that have joined the channel in the last week, since the last video blew up a bit. So thank you ever so much for that, to everyone that watched that, and to the new subscribers here. I hope you've enjoyed this, and I hope you'll join me for the next episode of Planet Hex.